Greetings and peace and love be with you all, and welcome to SB Life Institute podcast, where we inspire, serve, and build meaningful conversation to heal hearts, to strengthen communities, and bring people together. Today's discussion, I'll say, is deeply personal and incredibly important. And we are talking about healing after COVID, coping with loss, trauma, and emotional recovery. Many of us, we had family members that we have lost and have experienced that time frame of the COVID and impacted them in a very negative way. Many people survive physically, but internally, they are still carrying grief, they're still carrying fear, exhaustion. There is a sense of loneliness because I know for a fact there are those who have lost many family members from the immediate family members, anxiety, and in addition to this, emotional fatigue. Today, I'm very honored to join with someone who has spent years walking beside people during some of their life's most difficult moment, and he is no other than Jensen, and he is is a devoted follower of the Christian faith, and currently serves as a chaplain at New York Presbyterian Queens, and where he provides spiritual and emotional support for patients. And before that, he worked as a spiritual counselor for one of New York's leading hospice programs, where also he demonstrated what it means to support people in the last moment. I'm honored to have him here with us. I want to congratulate him on his 10-month-old daughter, who is completely taking over all of his free time, his schedule, and honestly, his heart, so to speak, as well. So I want to thank him. Thank you so much, having your hands filled with your family and work for us to join this conversation. Welcome, my friend and my brother. It's an honor to know you, work alongside you, see what's an amazing person you are, and for us to join this discussion.
Thank you so
Welcome.
far.
So I just want to say, we are talking about COVID, and many people think about the mask. We think about the mask. We think about the vaccines, hospitals, and the lockdowns. But as chaplains, I'll say that we are spiritual caregivers, right? And we witness something deeper. What do you think people are still carrying emotionally after COVID? What do you think people are still carrying with them? Because I know, having conversation with many across the religious spectrum, that they always reflect on the loss. And the mere fact that sometimes they distance themselves from talking about this, that I see from what they're saying, from what they're not saying as well, that this is basically taking a toll on them despite years have passed. Can you shed some light on that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that comes to mind quickly is when I was in hospice, we were just figuring out what this COVID-19 was really about. What is this coronavirus and how does it affect us, right? Because we're in the front lines as chaplains and we're going into people's homes as well. Like there's home care hospice as well. So we were really worried, but also wanting to be present for those families and loved ones. So unfortunately, we had one member of our team that passed away from COVID. And it was such a devastating loss for us as a company and it just personally as well, because I knew him very well, and he was such a big light and huge personality, and it left a void, and it continues to leave a void in our community. And so to process that, it wasn't talked about for a while, but randomly one nurse was like, after 1 year, like we gave this moment of silence when he passed away, but after 1 year, it's like this is his 1 year anniversary. And then we all just came together and like just had a beautiful it wasn't even planned to be, but it was like a memorial service about his life and what he was like, his life was about, so which was selfless, which was like his hand was always open to help out another one who was in need. And so we were just like reflecting on stories, we were laughing together, and just for someone to say and to acknowledge that I'm missing this person, and there is Like, I'm still thinking about him after a year. It was so powerful to even admit that. And first thing to know is to admit, right? Like,
Yeah.
first thing to know is like, wow, like above all else, to name that feeling is a very powerful thing.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And that is so powerful that you're saying this is a colleague of yours, right? Someone that you
Yeah.
worked with that was like family. You know, thinking about what you're saying, I am reflecting on people that I know from within our congregation or families who have lost, you know, father, child, have lost close people that are closely knitted to them. And while they were trying to figure out what was exactly happening, that you're saying something very important, that you're still trying to figure out what was COVID, and that you're hearing all these discussions, all these thought process, all these, you know, thought process of what it is actually, and then you have different information. People trying to
Yeah.
navigate through those information
Conflicting
while
information too.
uh,
Yeah. Even conflicting information.
conflicting information, and at
Yeah.
the same time have to
Yeah.
cope with the loss of the loved ones. And
Yeah.
um, is there anything that stood out for you during that particular time? You know, like
In terms of,
in terms, like when I say like in terms of your work and dealing with people in the like
mm,
probably you were in the hospice, and you know, in
yeah.
terms of people within your congregation, anything that impacted you in your congregation, that you want to share?
Yeah, we had several people, and even in my congregation, and even the larger like Indian community that I'm a part of, that we suffered a lot. A lot of my friends, their parents passed away, and losing a loved one leaves a void. No matter what, it leaves a void, and if it goes unaddressed, like it almost eats at you, and you slowly lose a part of who you are because that loved one is part of your identity, whether you like it or not. Even if it's a healthy or not healthy relationship, it's a part of your identity. And it's so important to talk about and discuss it. And so I made it an effort because of my own life and losing loved ones before, even my father. Like, I know how important it is to take a moment to just be with a person. Like the ministry of presence, right? And especially in chaplaincy is very important. You don't even have to say much, just for you being there present with that individual who's grieving, who's experiencing that loss is such a profound experience. And when they're ready to talk about it, they will, and they 100% will. And it's like a powerful ministry. And just to be there for someone who's grieving, firsthand, even for my life, is is so healing. It's very healing and it's refreshing. And it takes time. It's not a, one day thing. And it's not like, we talk about it for 20 minutes. Okay, you're good, you're fine. It's a continual process. It's like grief is waves, right? Waves are gentle, some waves are crashing. It's a continual process. It's a journey. But having people in your life that you can come to for counsel, for advice, for just to sit with, to laugh with, and to share those memories with is very meaningful. And I'm grateful for those individuals in my life. And I likewise help, make it a make it a thing to make sure that I'm there for others as well.
Thank you so much for sharing. I can sense in your voice when talking about this that how this is probably has impacted you thinking about it. You know, sometimes we don't think of something when we start talking about it.
Mm,
It creates this deep emotion, and it brings back all these memories. But I think this is one of the ways of healing as well. You know, like for those who are listening, that they will recall their struggles and their hardship that they endured. There is a lot of people that have unresolved grief often hides inside of them, and I have seen that basically in my community and with people that I know, that there was this segregation between husband and wife,
mm,
or between children and their parent, and you know that there was a segregation that they will fear to enter into the very home, right? Fear to enter in the very home. And then uh, you hear that someone passed. Having to deal with that, they select at the time of the burial 5 person, 10 persons within the family to be at the funeral home. or to do the
Wow.
last rites.
Wow.
So even in the last moment with the regulation that they will do the preparation of the loved one, and sometimes you're not able to be there,
Yeah.
and they're very minimal preparation because of the nature of the illness and the sickness and the pandemic, and they will take them to the burial site, and only 10 persons
Was
or
allowed.
less.
Yeah.
How do you select? So thinking of that, that even bidding farewell between a husband and a wife, a child, and the parent,
Yeah.
that there is so much unresolved heart that is in the heart of many family members dealing with this, right? And
Mm.
how can we help those who are going through that, right? Because I
Yeah.
see community leaders are trying their best to find ways and means to help people as they go through this process, right? The process, whether I was sharing with you before we started the session of a particular community that actually thought it fit to somehow planted a tree where people can go there in the park, and that tree is a representation of the loss. And,
Yeah.
and the beauty of this is that I think of it from a deep angle, because life, there's life. The tree represents life, growth, um, gives hope, it gives shade, it gives shelter. And they see it fit to plant that tree to represent a very difficult time in their life of loss. That's their sense of comfort, and that's what I see, that the community come together to plant this tree as
Mhm.
a source of comfort, but at the same time that pain is there. There are
Yeah.
different ways and means. How can someone lean into their faith to help them? Maybe you can share that from a universal perspective, that coping in terms of using your faith in helping people to cope with this. And what
Well,
are other means that we can probably help? Briefly, if you can share, as a chaplain. Yeah.
well, first thing is, death is, I think first and foremost, we hide away from death. Even in hospice, like it's such a negative term that is used. And so first, I believe that as a community, we need to discuss that a little bit more on what that means. And to
Yeah.
understand that death is just a natural counterpart to life. There's a beginning
Yeah.
and an end,
Yes.
Jung kind of described it as life having two halves. One is building, your identity, your career, family, you know,
Yeah.
your represent how you were represented to those around you. But the second half, there must be a point where you start looking inward, and like when you start seeking meaning and your purpose of life, and how you prepare for your end as well, and what legacy you leave behind. Because I know many adults, especially when they're nearing their end of life, there are a few that have a difficult time accepting their death, or because they feel like they never fully finished the first half. There's something missing and that needs to be completed. So that gives me opportunities like, all right, what is something that you feel that you have left to do on this earth that is missing, and how can we bridge that gap? Because once we understand death and what it signifies, it's a sacred thing, and it
Yeah.
deepens your gratitude. It clarifies, what is the meaning of life. It reduces fear, right?
Yeah.
And increases compassion. And, accepting morality is one of the most like important steps towards like understanding yourself and your wholeness. So I feel like that should be in a teacher of itself. Even COVID, and we're seeing the losses around us. It's not just, oh my gosh, what a terrible thing, but it should be a teacher of how we as a community as we as a humanity are there for each other. Because even in COVID, how many heroes do we have? How many people are we celebrating being on the front lines, being there for each other? How are we in Zoom meetings like this, like really have like discussions with each other, even though we couldn't be present. Um, and once we see death as a teacher, not an enemy, that I believe, will create that humility and wisdom and, gratefulness for what we have, recognizing like this crown of health that we wear. while many are physically suffering, and to be present for them, supporting those individuals with your presence, it's a powerful thing. With with faith, it gives a story big enough to hold their pain
Yeah,
because because it reframes that their suffering has a larger part of their journey,
yeah,
and it gives language for not, faith provides hope, not denial. You
yes,
know, that like hope is not about the cure, but about the transition to the next life. It's about meaning, it's about presence and peace ultimately. So once we have faith, we have like that hope for reconciliation, we have hope for spiritual continuity, we have hope that this person's life mattered in the grand scheme of what God is doing in our midst.
and one of the things, yeah, it's so true that you're saying that we reflect on our faith and about life and death in the whole, and we have so much in common in terms of our spiritual path that
Mm,
tells us that this life basically is not forever. It's for a period of time, and then we transition. In that process, when we lose someone, one of the things that comes to mind would be that there's a grieving process and not able to say during this particular time goodbye and to say our
yeah,
goodbyes and even to do that which we're comforted by the last rites in the way we would
yeah,
like it to be done. I know that created a lasting impact, but one thing I will say that there are things that happens in life that is not in our control.
yeah,
And if we understand that, if our viewers understand it, if people in the whole that we put in our psyche that there were so minimal things that happened during the COVID that was literally not in your control and not in my control, because if we wanted differently, we had the power to do differently, we would have done,
mm,
or we had power to make those changes, we'd have done because of the
yeah,
connection of the people that we have.
yeah,
So when things happen and it's out of our control, like the COVID, like the separation, like the lack of saying proper goodbyes or not able to even doing our rituals in the way we want to do our rituals, that we hold on to the positives that God has given us, our loved ones, and we were able to build memories with them. And we
yeah,
hold on to those memories will somehow live on, like the
yeah,
memories of your colleague and your friend.
yeah,
Will live on, and you would cherish those memories, and then the memories of the people that you have lost or have suffered during this particular time will always live on. And I'll say to uh, our listeners that while we're discussing coping coping with after trauma of COVID, that we rely on our faith, but also we rely on the blessing of time that we had with these loved ones, and what we were able to do with them, and what we were able to somehow um, build with them. We hold on to those, and it will carry us a very far way. And talking about their legacy or talking about what they did in terms of their lives and their choices. I think speaking about the people that we
mm,
lost during this time will also somehow have their memories alive and will help us in so many different ways. The other thing I want to ask, right, would be the COVID taught us to appreciate the people that is in our lives, and people stop checking in on their family members sometimes, and checking in with their loved ones. I'll probably say to you that maybe we can emphasize on the importance of spending time with the people that we love, our children, our family members, and
mm,
to somehow build those precious moments, because life has a way of throwing a lot of carve balls at us in so many different ways. So make sure that you spend valuable time with the people around you, and ensure that we lean, as you said, lean into our faith, despite what faith you may embrace, or whatever
Yeah.
faith you may believe in. What was your experience with individuals within the hospice setting? How was your work then? Maybe you can share some things about that.
Yeah. I mean, based on what you also shared earlier, like COVID almost normalized isolation, right? Because when people are sick, when we're going through a certain illness, we have like isolation protocols, right? So you have to be in the room alone by yourself. And like,
Yeah.
even with young people, like they've just become normalized to just being alone and not even sharing what's going on through their minds. They're scrolling on social media or, just being distracted. Like COVID really taught us to be distracted and not being present with what we're experiencing right now. And so even in the hospice setting, like eventually we were granted the opportunity, especially to be present for those who are suffering, who are in their last final moments when they have literally no one there with them. Like their families are in a different state and, they are just crying out, like calling for their loved ones. And unfortunately, like there's not much we can do. And just being present with them, like making the intentional visits to be present with them as much as we can was so profound. And I'm just so grateful and humbled for that opportunity to do that. And it teaches you that, relationship and even reconciliation, because there's a lot of broken relationships as well. And that comes up during the dying process. And and faith gives you permission to say, I forgive you, knowing that there's a higher power that's bigger than all of that. And it reduces guilt, it reduces regret, and allows patients and families to like experience emotional completion. It's just like a healing moment at the end of the day where just like, thank you for this moment. Thank you for being present. Thank you for just not to having someone to talk to, because I am so lonely. And, when you're in isolation, your mind can go drift into various different ways. And someone to just bring it in to be present,
Yeah.
you know, for me, like when I lost my dad, I became the opposite of healthy coping, like I just wanted to be alone. I didn't want anyone to talk to, and these deep, dark thoughts just to come in. And it was easy. It was comfortable just to be isolated and not really reaching out to anyone. But those people in my life that forced their way in and just continually like say, like, hey, I'm here, I'm available, I'm present for you,
And you
was
knowing that it makes a difference too, right? You knowing that,
100%,
it makes
100%.
a great difference. And
Yeah,
I think, not to interject, but whenever we go through trauma or hardship, someone may need their space, but just letting them know that you're there, they're not
yes,
alone. While
correct.
you have your space, that we are here, we're looking on, and we're here as a pillar in your life, and you
Someone
know,
to lean on. Yeah,
someone to lean on. And I
yeah,
think in the context of COVID, that there are many who have physically healed, but emotionally they're not, and still they go through this mental trauma and emotional trauma.
yeah,
And if you recognize that, it's important for you to say to them,
yeah,
right, that you're here for them. If, let them know that you know what they're going through, and that somehow you're there you may not know what they're experiencing, because people personal emotional journey is
yeah,
different, and they deal with it differently. But at least knowing their presence,
yeah.
it's quite important.
I think also like there, especially in, I would say in our communities, there's also negative emotions people put, which is not negative, but sadness, anger,
Yeah.
fear has a negative connotation to it. Sometimes we don't allow, people that we know to experience that. For example, which reminded me, I had a patient who was going into surgery and everything was prepared. And as she was going in, she had a panic attack like the surgeons were ready to go, but she had a panic attack and wanted out. Like, I want done. I'm not having the surgery. I just want out of it. So everyone's confused. Like, what's happening? What's going on? But eventually they brought her back to the room. The doctor called me like, "Can you go speak with this patient? She's going through something, but we don't know what it is." And then so I go in, and she sees I'm the chaplain, and she's like, "Oh, they sent a chaplain? I'm definitely dying now," right?
Oh my God.
But right, but I was like, "No, I'm here to check in on you. What's going on?"
Uh,
But after
It
with
happened
peeling,
so many times. Yeah,
right? Yeah,
yeah, because
we're not
people
the
were
angels of
still trying
death.
to navigate. They were still trying to navigate as to what is happening to them, and people will not
Yeah.
say to them to raise any fear or anxiety. They will probably look how they're communicating information. And I want to take a moment and say, hats off, positive shout out to our healthcare workers, or our
Yes.
chaplains, or our doctors who literally are actually the uh, the heroes in this entire story, because while everyone was segregated, and also religious community leaders, I'm going to tell you in a bit why I say this, is because while everyone was trying to safeguard themselves, and rightly so, being confined, following the guidelines and separation and that type of thing, there were those doctors that put on their capes in the morning, those
Mm.
heroes, and they walk in right there, putting their lives in danger. And we have lost many. And
Yeah.
also,
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
of the things that I remember uh, is that the transporters as well,
Oh
that
yeah.
there were times that we will have to go to the transporters and speak with them, because why? It was difficult for them. It was challenging for them
Mm.
being there for the transporters, seeing all this death and dying, and having to transport them, and then witnessing this emotional outburst and cry and weep. And I don't still try to comprehend that how they were able to cope with that,
Yeah.
right? And as chaplains, we recognize that. We recognize that,
Yeah.
and we try to, say to them that we are here. We prayed with them. We supported them.
Mm.
We
Yeah.
offered them that support. But I know for a fact that this will have very lasting
Facts. Yeah.
emotional impact on them.
Mm.
Just before, I ask you to share your closing thoughts, a few things I want to mention, that during the COVID, there were so many changes that we had to make. People had to make a lot of changes, whether it's in their personal family life, even into the spiritual spaces, like places of worship. A lot of changes were made. Just I can recall we compiled books of prayers and send it out of WhatsApp, sharing food for people that was scared to go to the grocery shops. And
Wow.
in one day, I can recall having to be there at the burial site from the morning all the way in the evening, waiting as a spiritual leader for 2, 3 funerals to come. At one time, we did like 9 funeral, uh, and a last rites funeral prayer, what we refer to as a janaza prayer at the
The
burial site,
burial site. Yeah. Wow.
and
How did
it
you
was
cope
not.
with that after those
It,
days?
it was traumatic. I think I got
Yeah.
sick during that time. I don't know
Mm.
what was it, but just sharing this with you and those who will be listening, that
Yeah.
I you know these pictures starts popping up on your Google Drive after 2 years, three
Oh
years, four
yeah.
years. So
Yeah.
last week I'm watching my phone and I saw some pictures that actually literally popped up. If I find it, I'm gonna just show it to you. Popped up on my phone, and it was pictures with marks, red marks, indentation on my skin, my faces, like some allergy I developed during that particular time. But we often ask ourselves, God placed you, Jensen,
Mm.
and certain people in a place at the most difficult time. When you look back, let's say 20 years from now, and your kid asks you, your baby, that is a baby now, you will still be a baby then, for you, right? What have you basically done during that particular time? As you shared with your child about COVID, you can always say, to your child. For example, like I was there in a hospice setting, I was there in a hospital, I help, because this is going to be in history, that there will be, people reflecting on this, and this information will be somehow passed on. How can you live with yourself knowing that you have certain skill sets, and you choose to be self-centered rather than being there using your support, and I'm not saying this in a negative way, but I thought of my legacy, like as a spiritual
Yeah.
leader that advocates of helping people, self-sacrifice in that type of thing. I saw the necessity of
Mhm.
going and lending
It's through your
that.
actions.
Yeah.
It's through your
And
actions, not
yeah,
just
true. Yeah,
words.
not
Yeah.
just words. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think, looking back at those pictures pop up, it brings back so much memories to me, like
Mm.
so much memories. And, we remember those challenging times, and, you know, we're thankful that we passed through it, and we have something to reflect on, and draw valuable life lessons from it, right?
Yeah.
Valuable life lessons from it. One thing I'll ask you as we conclude: what advice, do you have for people who, um, are still grieving despite years have passed?
Yeah. I will tell you, like continue that story that I was sharing with that lady. She came back and she said, "Oh, it's a chaplain. It's here. Like I'm definitely dying."
Yeah.
But she, after talking with her, I no one knew what was going on. But after talking with her, she eventually shared that she lost her daughter
Uh,
during the COVID, and she was just grieving her loss. And her daughter was the one that was always with her during the doctor visits and the hospital visits. Like she
yeah.
was always there, and she was there for, I believe it was like a hip surgery, but she was just grieving her presence. There was a void in that room, and it was her daughter. And she was sharing how no one's letting her cry. No one lets her grieve. It's like, no, don't worry about it. You're strong, just be strong. But she just like, I don't want to be strong right now. I want to cry. I want to grieve my daughter. And she was just in tears. And I just
Oh my God.
joined in with her. I felt that,
Mm,
personally too. It's just like, you know what? You can grieve, because you grieve
yeah.
because you loved.
Yeah.
And just allowing that and then naming that, like that sadness and that fear of going to the next steps of what the surgery will look like. But come to find out, we did some motivational interviewing about like what are the next steps, what will the surgery do for you. And she was like, I can be there for her children, my daughter's children. She's taking care of them now. And so like at least with the surgery I can be more independent and be there for my grandchildren. And just and she found the courage and the strength herself by acknowledging her grief, acknowledging her sadness, acknowledging that she's lost a loved one to be there for her grandchildren. And so I would say, like, don't run away from sadness, don't run away from grief. Acknowledge it, accept it. It's part of
Yeah.
life.
That's so powerful.
Yeah. And there's growth in that too. And it will and empower you to what God has for you next.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so I want to thank you so much for, joining into today's discussion. And I'll say that, um, this will be something that has left, uh, uh, an impact on many of us, and we will always remember COVID-19, and its impact that it had in society, and we remember those people who stood out as heroes
Yeah.
and fought like heroes and give up a lot just to save lives. We will remember the people that were dear and near to us that we have lost, that we could not have
Yeah.
proper goodbyes. We will remember our mothers and our fathers and our brothers and our sisters. We remember those people that we still question ourselves where they find that strength from to cope
Mm.
basically with their loss and their grief. But I'll say that we learn, as you said, that we learn from these moments. We reflect on these moments. We learn from them, and I think it strengthen us, our character, strengthen our personality, to probably be a better person and to be appreciative. One of the things that I've learned
Mm,
from this, that within the twinkling of your eye, things can change. What was normal becomes abnormal. Someone is with you today that you love, and tomorrow they're no
mm,
longer there.
right.
This is this is myself
Mm,
and Mr. Salim. He was a member of my community, and he died, passed away. But I will always remember him, how he basically somehow dedicated a lot of his time and energy in serving people during the COVID time. Also, this was myself, like, during the
look at that.
COVID helping,
Yeah,
like, and I have a lot of pictures that, where we were basically masked up, being out there helping, distribution of food and helping people. And we will remember those moments.
yeah.
And um, we understand what love is during that time too, right, Jensen?
I mean,
We
that's the
love.
why we got up and went outside in the first place, right?
Yes. And so one of the
Yeah,
lessons we will say we
yeah,
learned about love, how important it is
yeah.
for us to show that unconditional love, and that love, d- no barrier,
Mm,
religious barrier.
mm,
The person that was fighting for your life would probably be a a Jewish doctor, or a Muslim doctor, a Christian doctor, or something of that nature. The nurses that gave up the comfort of their home were
yeah,
probably from an African American, not our white person, Caucasian. Like, with all the segregation that we're seeing
yeah.
today, that artificial segregation, that during the COVID time uh,
There was
taught
no
us to love
barriers.
each
Yeah,
other. Those
yeah,
barriers didn't mean anything. Period.
exactly.
Nothing.
Mm,
Right. And maybe we can learn from that,
yeah.
um,
And
to
not
appreciate
forget
what
it.
we have,
Yeah,
and not to
yeah,
forget
yeah,
how important it is for us to love and not to hate.
yeah.
Right? Thank you so much, Jensen. May
Thank
God
you,
be with you. I
Safraz.
really want to thank you so much for sharing
Yeah,
this. Do not forget to join and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And this is SB Life Institute podcast. And I'm on YouTube, in addition to this, Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Please subscribe. I really appreciate it. Please subscribe and share, and encourage others to listen, and also to subscribe and share. Note that this is a safe space where we discuss matters of importance, emotional well-being, spiritual well-being, and also societal issues, to better our communities and better our society, looking beyond race, looking beyond religion, and even looking beyond the artificial segregations that people often erect. Thank you so much. May God be with you. Love you all. Peace and love.